There's a heck of a story coming out tomorrow, day one of the Michael Jackson trial, and before you roll your eyes, they may put this guy away for life, for the rest of his life. I know that's funny, I know that's clever, I know we like to hang our freaks right in the town square there, but you know, this turns out to be a phony case. Someone's going to have, we're going to be doing some public lynching. What happens if this case turns out to be completely bogus? Completely. What do you then do to the prosecutor? What do you then do to all these reporters, these Diane Diamonds, what do you do to them? If they have been pushing false information out there to such a degree to besmirch in such a way. And you could say, well, why do you care? Why do you care so much, Drudge? What's in it for me? Because what can happen to an individual when you have overzealous prosecutors in this country is frightening. And this is the story of the Michael Jackson case, in my opinion. 100 search warrants, photos of his genitalia and his arse. And I know many of you don't want to think of Michael Jackson in those terms, but Sneddon photographed his privates. Sneddon did. And if he did it to Michael Jackson, he could do it to you. Think about that. And then you couple that with a media establishment who wants to see you fail, who is mocking you because you are mockable, but still in cahoots. Almost like a weird dynamic, a weird merger of government and media yet once again. And the media industrial complex is frightening. And this is why I have been paying so much attention to this Michael Jackson case. Not necessarily because I, care about Michael Jackson that much.
The service of the warrants was part of an ongoing investigation alleging criminal misconduct on the part of Michael Jackson. The basis for this investigation regarding Mr. Jackson involves allegations of child molestation, 288A of the California Penal Code. Additionally, an arrest warrant for Mr. Jackson has been issued on multiple counts of child molestation.
Tonight, he's officially an accused serial rapist, and we have all new details about the Santan Valley teen who could be behind at least 18 attacks.
What was his home life like? Did his family know about his alleged behavior?
A Santan Valley teen remains behind bars tonight.
Rearrested today and facing 25 new charges of sexual abuse and sexual assault. A judge determined 18-year-old Tyler Cost could not be released on bond.
A chilling account of a gang rape at the University of Virginia has reignited attention over the problem of sexual assault on campus. In this case, it is provoking new investigations and questions about the university's response to assault cases and whether it has covered them up.
On one side, the best of the best, the privileged young scholar athletes of the Duke University lacrosse team. 46 of the 47 players were white. On the other side, a 27-year-old black woman, a mother, who worked part-time as a stripper while attending college herself on the other side of town. And her accusation wasn't just name-calling. She said she was gang raped.
Unfortunately, they're young men, and sometimes young men make bad decisions, make some bad judgments, and that's what this whole incident's about.
Diamond is on the scene, live, reporting exclusively. The prosecution who is on top. They have won every major motion they've put forward, and the defense has won almost nothing.
A gentleman who has been operating from more of a, let's see what the testimony is in the courtroom, including the cross-examination, which is getting left out of a lot of coverage. What a lot of talk hosts and cable hosts are doing are reading the first AP story, which has the DA and the prosecutor's testimony, questioning of a witness. They are leaving out the cross-examination until later in the day, and the hosts don't bother to actually, get the right through on the AP. So you're not hearing how witness after witness is disintegrating on the stand. There has not been one witness, or at least lately, that has not admitted to perjuring themselves in previous proceedings, either in this case or some other case.
The trial was about 4 months long. They've been making this concerted effort to try to portray Jackson as guilty, twisting the testimony, picking out tiny sound bites which misrepresent the testimony. Jackson had a bad day in court, for instance. So it's a prosecution witness, and Tom Sneddon or Ron Vernon is interviewing them. Then what that is essentially, that's just a chance for the prosecution to get their witness to make their allegation. That's just a chance for the boy to come on the stand and and make all these graphic allegations. And of course, that gets run as a double-page spread in most newspapers. You know, he slid his hand down my pants, says boy, or whatever. And, you know, you get all these graphic descriptions and pictures, you know, drawings of the witness looking all sympathetic. And then the next day, Thomas Mesereau will take the floor and destroy that witness. You know, catch him out in lies, prove that he's lied in the past, prove that he's lied about sexual molestation in the past, pick up the grand jury testimony and say, well, yesterday you said this, but in the grand jury testimony you said that. Yesterday you said this, but in the police interview you said that. He caught him out in lie after lie after lie, including big lies. You know, lies about, he said that Michael Jackson had told him that all boys have to masturbate because otherwise they'll rape people. And it turned out that Michael Jackson had never said that to him. He admitted on the stand that his grandmother had actually said that to him. Enormous lies, you know, which would, in most people's eyes, be the difference between thinking Jackson is innocent or guilty.
So Snedden's case so far, at least in this going back to the past, has been a trail of tabloid rejects or tabloid sources?
Really based on, his case is largely based on the National Enquirer reporting, and we wouldn't know about this except for these extraordinary tapes. We were lucky they were left to a guy named Paul Baresi, who's an investigator in Hollywood, who came to me, and I don't even think I was the first person he came to, but I was the only one who would listen to him. And he said, you know, let's listen to these tapes. They will tell you about how the National Enquirer dangled hundreds of thousands of dollars in front of everyone to get them to say that Michael Jackson molested a kid.
If it's metal, strike it. If it rattles, shake it. If it's wooden, break it. You're listening to the beat of outrage.
We're making this kind of noise because we're standing in solidarity with the women who've gone through this horrible atrocity.
Police say something horrible happened at this house, a gang rape.
I am enraged and disgusted that and embarrassed that something like this has happened.
No one has been charged, but police collected DNA samples from 46 Duke lacrosse players.
Wake up! Wake up! The sun is up! It's Sunday morning! Time to come down!
Time to come together, time to demand the truth.
We want the members of the Duke lacrosse team to come clean.
They haven't been convicted, but 30-something kids are remaining silent.
So this group is breaking that silence with instruments of percussion as instruments of change.
News of the reported gang rape and the resulting protests couldn't have been more timely. Starting tomorrow, it's Sexual Assault Prevention Week at Duke University. Events are planned every day this week, including a Take Back the Night rally Wednesday night to honor survivors.
The lacrosse team was forced to forfeit 2 games because of the controversy. Fans showed up for yesterday's game and found out it was forfeited along with Tuesday's match. They were also greeted by protesters carrying signs that say, "Don't be a fan of rapists." Duke Director of Athletics Joe Oliva says that while the players deny the rape allegations, they concede there was a party with underage
officials. NBC News national correspondent Peter Alexander joins us live from Charlottesville, Virginia, the home of the University of Virginia. Peter?
Mika, good morning to you. This is the fraternity where the most violent of the alleged sexual assaults took place, the Phi Kappa Psi house here. And this graphic article from Rolling Stone has sparked outrage and backlash across campus about the college community and more specifically the administration's handling of sexual assault on campus.
On the University of Virginia's campus, a silent show of outrage with students sticking dozens of notes on the admissions office doors, messages like "expel rapists" and a pile of rocks, each representing a sexual assault survivor. Students and faculty voiced their anger in protest this weekend.
This is an intolerable act that needs to stop now.
The university is reeling in the wake of an extensive Rolling Stone magazine article detailing multiple claims of sexual assault on campus, including the alleged gang rape of a first-year student at the Phi Kappa Psi fraternity house 2 years ago. Just last week, the university asked Charlottesville police to investigate, with UVA's president announcing the suspension of all fraternities and related social activities for the rest of this year.
I think the Greek community needs to do some serious soul searching.
about the way that it has behaved, about the behavior it's tolerated, about what its future is going to be.
Phi Kappa Psi, whose house was the target of vandals after the article's publication, is promising to cooperate with any investigation, saying the acts depicted in the article are beyond unacceptable. They are vile and intolerable. UVA is already under scrutiny by the federal government, which announced Title IX investigations of the university and 54 other schools for their handling of sexual assault complaints. As students prepare to head home for Thanksgiving, many are demanding their school's culture change.
Clearly something is not working, something is not right. People are getting hurt over and over again, and that has to stop.
The statistics are alarming nationwide. 1 in 5 students, this number from the White House, 1 in 5 women is sexually assaulted during their time in college. A short time from now, Mika, we're going to hear from student leaders who are going to be addressing the administration's decision to shut down Greek life through the first days of January, as well as about the article itself.
The Costs had only lived there for about a year. Some neighbors say they barely knew the teen or his family. But now neighbors, especially those with kids, feel like they're on lockdown.
We tried talking to Tyler's parents, but a no trespassing sign quickly stopped us in our tracks. Neighbors tell us the sign just went up today. The case has suddenly made them notice the family every neighbor we spoke to says they didn't know before this. It's also forced this single mother of 4 to make some big changes.
Their babysitter, she watches Emily walk home. Emily walks home with another kid from school. So they're watched at all times. We don't leave the door unlocked. We close all the windows at night.
Catherine McBride says her kindergarten-age daughter walks past Tyler's house every day.
It made me feel sick to my stomach. I mean, he can see into their backyard where my kids are playing all day long.
McBride says the teen being rearrested today does give her at least some comfort.
I hope he stays in jail forever. I don't know why they released him the first time. I don't think that they should have ever done that, but I'm glad he's back in jail now.
And Elizabeth, the way we're hearing from him, it's pretty unexpected here.
It certainly is, Katie and Steve. Tyler Coast is sitting here right now behind bars at the Pinal County Jail. He's not talking to anybody tonight, but he did send us this email just days before the Pinal County Sheriff's Office started investigating him.
Client's rights to due process and a fair trial.
Coast was pretty outspoken to ABC 15 in this email he sent us at the end of March, saying he was the one being threatened by an ex-girlfriend and that no one was doing anything to help him. It appears Coast tried to convince a judge that he was the victim, filing an order of protection a few months back. That request was denied. It's a far cry from what he's being accused of, sexually assaulting at least 18 high school students in the past 3 years, according to the Pinal County Sheriff's Office.
It just scares me, I guess. He lives like right there and we're always down that street.
In these new police reports, his accusers say his mom might have been able to stop it. One alleged victim told investigators his mom walked in while Coast was raping her and said he should be more discreet in the future. Another said his mom is easily influenced by him and would lie to protect him.
Well, every time I'm around him, he's just quiet.
He was really nice and he came in there as like the tech assistant and he didn't really talk.
He was really quiet. I didn't think he would be the person to do that to someone.
The journalist who broke the story for Rolling Stone, Sabrina Rubin Erdely. Sabrina, thanks very much for being on. I guess, first of all, tell us what you discovered. What happened in that fraternity?
Well, I met a young woman named Jackie. She's a junior now. And she told me that when she was a freshman, she was invited on a date to a fraternity house where there was a party. And while she was there, she was lured upstairs into a bedroom where she was gang raped by 7 men, while 2 other men, including her date, watched and gave encouragement. She told me that she eventually took this report to the administration, and the administration did nothing.
This ad stated that something, unequivocally stated that something happened to Mangum. It committed the signatories, 88 of them, to turning up the volume regardless of what the court case described. It gave a thank you to protesters, and not just a thank you, but a thank you for not waiting. The 2 highest profile protests on campus before the ad came out were a protest in front of the lacrosse player's house where a group that called itself the Pot Bangers, because they banged pots and pans, carried a huge banner that said castrate. And then a Take Back the Night march on March 29th, where feminist activists spread around the campus huge wanted posters with the lacrosse players' photographs on them. No Duke professor who signed the statement has ever given a reason why it was so important, not just to thank these protesters, but to thank them for not waiting. And finally, the ad claimed, in what was a really unprecedented event, to have the official endorsement of 5 academic departments at Duke and 10 academic programs. Who were these faculty, this group of 88? This was not a random cross-sampling of the Duke campus. 80% of the professors in the African American Studies department signed the statement. 72.3% of the professors in the Women's Studies program signed the statement. 60% of the professors in the Cultural Anthropology program signed the statement. Large numbers of history, English, and literature professors signed the statement. There was only one law professor who signed the statement, and she did not have a full-time appointment in the law school, and only 3 math or science professors who signed the statement. And a women's studies professor, a signatory to the statement, named Kathy Rudy, published an essay in the early 90s saying that she had initially entered higher education because it gave her an opportunity to explore, and I'm quoting here, the idea that women were superior and that a new world could be built on that superiority.
Michael Jackson is finished. This is devastating. How could all these people be lying? The question is, maybe they are all lying. Why isn't that a possibility? Does Sneddon ever entertain any doubt on this case? Did he ever look at some of this, well, maybe the family is lying? Did he ever consider this, as any decent prosecutor should? Did he ever consider the pros and the cons? Did he ever do any of this? It doesn't appear that he did. And that is what scares me, and what should scare you also, is the finger-pointing and the accusations and the whisper campaign taken to a government level with authority for 100 search warrants and photography of your private parts.
Well, we've got the prosecutor caught in putting fingerprints of the child's fingerprints on a girly magazine.
Yes.
At the grand jury hearing. The magazine the boy said was exactly the magazine Michael gave him at Neverland Ranch, except the magazine hadn't been published yet when he was last at Neverland Ranch. So we now know Tom Sneddon had to or should have known that. So we have Tom Sneddon, the Santa Barbara district attorney of 25 years or more, planting evidence to hang Michael Jackson.
Then you have the DA Tom Sneddon spending enormous amounts of money, just traveling to all different continents, looking for victims. You know, this was the definition. This was the dictionary definition of a malicious prosecution. You have a prosecutor traveling around the world looking for victims of Michael Jackson. That's how obsessed he was. You know, it's not, okay, somebody's come to us and they've made a legitimate allegation, so we're going to try it. It's, let's travel halfway around the world looking for someone, anyone, who's going to say something nasty about Michael Jackson.
Now, lawyers for 19-year-old Tyler Cost are pushing to get social media records from his accusers.
ABC 15's Lauren Vargas reports from Pinal County Superior Court, where the teen's attorneys say he was set up.
Tyler Cost's attorneys claim this entire ordeal was just a shocking conspiracy to put the teenager behind bars, and they pleaded with Judge White here at the courthouse to access some other social media accounts for alleged victims. Tyler Cost was in court today but never said a word. The defense says they already have access to 98,000 pages of Facebook content, thanks to investigations by the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. Some of those messages by the accusers allegedly show the girls making plans to teach Tyler Cost a lesson, just like the movie John Tucker Must Die, where ex-girlfriends take revenge on a former boyfriend. Prosecutors would not comment on the ongoing case, but the defense attorneys say this is all about finding the truth.
There were a group of girls who conspired against Tyler to put him in jail. They succeeded at that, and Tyler has been in jail for over a year based on those lies.
When it was all said and done, the judge said he would take the issue under advisement.
On the night in question, just that night alone,
she had several different versions of events. In one version of events that night, she claimed she was only groped and not even raped. She changed the number of attackers. In the photo lineup, she identified different people. She identified one of the people as having a mustache who didn't even have a mustache. This whole case has been wrought with irregularities and nonsense and deceptions. Mike Nifong keeping exculpatory evidence away from the defense. You're talking about a guy that did 70 press interviews, used it to get reelected. There was never any real evidence against these players. The DNA didn't match on any count, in any way, in any capacity this entire time. You have absolutely no reason to believe these players committed this crime. One of the players has a solid alibi during the time the crime was supposed to have occurred.
My presence here means that this case is not going away.
He arrested 3 of the lacrosse players, Reed Seligman, Colin Finnerty, and David Evans. Arrested them despite the lack of DNA evidence and despite the fact he still had not interviewed the accuser. Though it did come out that when she was 18, the accuser filed a rape claim against 3 different men for raping her when she was 14. Those charges were never brought. More and more, it seemed, it was the prosecutor's zeal for the case, not the facts, that was making news. Linda Fairstein is one of the nation's most highly regarded prosecutors.
We heard the DA vouching for his case in ways that most prosecutors don't do publicly, certainly not before the investigators have completed an investigation of the case.
You know, I no longer get to go anywhere in my community without everybody knowing who I am.
Public opinion began to turn. The prosecutor seemed to be enjoying the attention too much.
There was pressure put on me to do nothing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's not doing your job.
A history professor named Susan Thorne taught many of the lacrosse players over the previous decade. Andy Flannery, whose parents are both CUNY professors, not exactly the image of an upper class bastion, had looked upon Thorne as his intellectual mentor at Duke. He had developed a very close relationship with both her and her family. He was stunned when he saw her name on the initial group of 88's ad. And he decided to email Thorne and ask her how it was that she could have signed the ad. And she wrote back in a lengthy email exchange that went over the course of the fall and admitted that she felt terrible about what she had done. She recognized that she had rushed to judgment. She apologized to Flannery in writing. I had asked her if she would be willing to publish an op-ed in the Durham or the Raleigh newspaper, apologizing for her rush to judgment and urging people to look at the facts of the case dispassionately. And Thorne promised him that, in fact, she would do so. She even wrote up a draft op-ed, which she sent to him. Next that Flannery heard from Susan Thorne was when he saw her signature on the clarifying statement letter, which included the following line. There have been calls for the signatories to the Group of 88 to apologize. We reject all of these calls. Flannery emailed Thorne and asked her, "You said you're going to apologize. You've even given me a draft. How is it that you could possibly not only not apologize, but then sign this statement saying that you were going to refuse to apologize?" Thorne wrote back a quite cold, but probably correct assessment. She said that she had given the matter considerable thought, and that she had decided that she had no choice but to sign the clarifying statement and not to issue her promised apology, because unless she did so, and this is a direct quote, "my voice won't count for much in my world." What kind of academic culture it is that exists on contemporary campuses in which a clearly well-meaning professor, Thorne wanted to do the right thing, could conclude that and could correctly conclude that the only way that she could retain a voice with her colleagues is to publicly betray her students not once, but twice. And while I doubt very much that we're going to see a prosecutor who is at least as blatantly dumb in terms of misconduct as Nifong was, I fear that we are going to see similar instances of faculty who look upon their students as the enemy and who are willing to betray not only the Academy's evaluation support for due process, but, like Susan Thorne, willing to even betray their personal relationship with their students.
Roger Freeman, FoxNews.com. You're sitting there in the courtroom. Why isn't the mother testifying? Why isn't Sneddon calling Miss Janet Jackson to get nasty on the stand? Why? She's a key witness. Where is she?
Well, that's a good question. Now, presumably she's the last witness.
He'll finish it off with a cherry on top.
She's an unreliable witness. And if she starts to tell a story about being kidnapped, the defense is ready to show receipts from her kidnapping. You and I would like to be kidnapped this nicely.
Well, I have to say that on Friday, Thursday was bad enough, but Friday, the cross-examination of the mother of this accuser in this case was so devastating, and not just because she lied a lot and admitted to it, and she admitted to a lot of lying on the stand on Friday, but also it's pretty clear that she's mentally ill in some way. Maybe she's schizophrenic. She's been hospitalized in a couple of mental hospitals. We don't know what the reasons were, but it seems pretty clear that this must have been the reason. And she may be more than just paranoid and schizophrenic. We started to see 2 and 3 different versions of her at the same time.
When everything that's coming out, and they got this bombshell video they showed in the courtroom where the family was praising Michael Jackson, at the very time they were saying they were being held hostage and the boy was molesting Gavin. Jackson was molesting Gavin. At the very moment they're making this wonderful video, and they say they were coached. The problem is the guy making the video was German, and he barely spoke English.
With the German managers of Michael Jackson coaching her. I mean, this is very funny. For one thing, I know the German managers. Their command of English isn't that good. They certainly did not write out a word-for-word script for her of anything. And there was no time for her to spend 10 times a day with them to learn it.
Mesero and Cross asked her, how long did it take you to learn the script of a 20, 30-minute video? Right. How long did it take you? And she said she didn't have an answer.
She didn't have an answer. Well, there are a lot of things she doesn't have an answer to because she's making up things off the top of her head now. He also said to her, well, that's a completely different version of any story you've told to a grand jury or to an investigator. It's a complete show, and it doesn't make any sense. It's not, we laugh about it, but, this is a question.
No, it's scary because they're very serious charges, and there's nothing worse in this country than being accused of molesting young boys. And what they have done here is very serious, Roger. And I think Sneddon knew the case was weak going into it. I swear I think he did. And I hope the jury gives him hell on that verdict day, and they come out there and saying, why was this case brought?
Well, Sneddon took a position on Friday in court where he sat behind the other prosecutors during her questioning, had his head in his hands, and was in very full view of the jury, looked disgusted. And that was a very bad sign because this is his witness. This is the person that he brought this whole case on. And now it looks like he's backing away from her. It was very bad.
Well, and also you have to wonder, what is the repercussions of a judicial system where you can have a prosecutor going through a grand jury, bringing these charges in like this, dragging this name, Michael Jackson, through the mud like this, the ridicule of an entire media industrial complex as it's been for month after month after month, people assuming he did it, people saying, well, if somebody in court is saying it, it must be true. And then you've got the prosecutor, you've got the government, who has the authority to tear your life upside down. Now, I don't understand why the question hasn't been presented to Prosecutor Sneddon. Sir, will you prosecute the accusers if it turns out they were lying and exaggerating and misrepresenting? Will you prosecute them? I want to ask you point blank, Roger Freeman, is there talk out there of charging her with perjury? Is there charges now possibly looming of Michael Jackson getting his day in court against this family, against this prosecutor, against these witnesses who have come in here and possibly perjured themselves?
Well, so far we haven't heard any talk of perjury. This is going to be interesting on the part of the district attorney. Is he going to turn around and prosecute his own witnesses for lying on the stand? Is that the cross-examination of these witnesses is usually fatal to them. And we've had one witness who just sort of said, all right, I lied about everything. So the cross-examination has been withering in most of the cases.
Well, hold on a second. Freeze it right there. You've got someone in a court of law saying they've lied about everything previously under oath. What is the consequence for somebody who does that out there in Sneddon?
No consequence.
None. So you can march into the courthouse now and lie, or say you've lied in previous depositions, say you were scared or whatever excuse they are using, you know, the generic excuse, and there's no consequence. It could happen to any of us, and if you got a prosecutor out there who wants you and wants you bad, prosecutorial abuse right now should be a major issue. I even think if they were really smart, I would think the White House would get involved in this case, and you can laugh at me, but it's been so egregious, the missteps, the false claims, the perjuries out there. It is a court gone crazy, and I'm very concerned that this is going to continue. Clinton started it, yeah. You can go and say anything in court. I give you permission now to perjure yourself and lie and point fingers and mock, and there's no consequence at all. Why not? Have a circus of it. If they're going to do that to us, if they're going to do that to citizens of this country, we should do it back at them. That is what's at stake here, and I don't know why other people are not jumping all over this. The integrity of the court system is at stake with this. What is going to be done to those who have perjured themselves in this case? Wake up. I mean, it's horrifying to think what is going to happen to our judicial system if you can go in there and lie and point fingers and saying all these terrible things, and it didn't happen.
Essentially, the procedure there works under the assumption that the accused is guilty and needs to use the hearing to prove his innocence. But he isn't given the tools to do that. He doesn't have discovery. He can't get the relevant evidence that he needs. He doesn't have an attorney representing, limited right of cross-examination. So there's virtually no way, once an accusation is made and gets into the system at a place like Amherst, and Amherst is not unique, that the accused can be exonerated.
You're done. Once you are accused, you're done. You can't have a lawyer in there representing you. And the rules say don't allow the accused to cross-examine the accuser because it could be intimidating and threatening for her. Well, she might be a liar. She might deserve a little intimidation if she is lying, as it certainly sounds the alleged victim in this case did.
There had been talk that the accuser in this case had texted friends about what happened on the night in question, but the Amherst investigator didn't explore this, the Amherst disciplinary panelist didn't explore this, and he didn't have a lawyer. He got a lawyer afterwards. The lawyer, who's a very good attorney, started asking questions.
The emails make very clear. This is after her alleged rape, her alleged sexual assault by John Doe, who was thrown out of school. She texts a resident advisor. Then after that, she texts another man and asks that man to come over.
She told the disciplinary panel that she was so traumatized by John Doe assaulting her that she needed a friend to come over and comfort her. In fact, the man she had invited previously to come over, she then had sex with.
She testified that she was distraught and she needed the comfort of a friend. But meanwhile, this is what she was texting a friend. Why is he just talking to me? Like, hot girl in a slutty dress, make your move. Yeah. And then she sends a text message saying, oh my God, action did not happen till 5 in the effing morning. Then when it came out that, this might not look very good and that her roommate might be upset that she had performed a sex act on the roommate's boyfriend, she decides to say, my roommate knows me. It's pretty obvious I wasn't an innocent bystander. My head is going to explode. How's this girl get a guy thrown out of school based on this?
She's operating in an environment, and Amherst is not unique here, in which the presumption is that any accuser is truthful, and the process is set up really with indifference to the truth. The idea is to prevent re-traumatization. And to an actual victim, this is, of course, very important. But when you have a case where the victim, or the accuser in this case, is not telling the truth, there's really no way to determine this. And
she hasn't had to answer for any of this yet. She hasn't offered her side of the story on any of this.
No.
Amherst is refusing to reopen the expulsion of this young man. They won't even look at it?
That's correct.
This cannot stand. It cannot stand. This does violence to the justice system that is set up to protect victims and the accused, the unfairly accused, who have rights as well.